What's up, Make Pop Music? Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Holt Audio and Visual, and we are back with another tutorial. And for this week, I wanted to do something that we've never really done on the channel, and that is working with loops. So we've been seeing it going around a lot lately that there have been a lot of loops being used in commercial songs that are splice loops or are royalty-free loops from other packs that end up not being changed much in several songs. And so a lot of the time the artists will end up calling each other out on Twitter. We just saw it with the Justin Bieber song. I've seen it before in the past, and really, nobody is at fault for this. It is a royalty-free loop and anybody can use it if they want to. However, it does get a little sticky when you're just trying to claim your sound. So for this video today, I wanted to go over 3 ways that you could actually make loops feel more like your own and make them not so instantly recognizable for what you might download from Splice or from a royalty-free pack. So we are going to go over 3 ways to actually customize that loop and build off of that to have something that fits your production and acts more as a starting point rather than just a drag and drop melody or sample or something like that. So we are going to hop into Cubase and go through those. But before we do, if you like this video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it and it helps us out a ton. If you want to download any of our sample packs or courses or anything like that, head to makepopmusic.com. We really appreciate all the support. But without further ado, let's actually hop into the DAW and see what we can do to make these loops feel more custom. All right, now we're in my DAW. You'll see another panel has fallen. So if anybody has always wondered, can you stick them up with command strips? You can for about 6 months, and then you should probably just take them down. Probably not going to rehang it because I'm moving in a few weeks, but rest in peace to that panel. Let's go ahead and let's hop in so I can show you what the loop that I picked at first sounded like, and then kind of what we did with them. And I'll go over 3 things that I like to do to loops to make them feel like my own. So we used a loop from Splice. It's the Boy Wonder melodic loop, piano 4-bar. It's an F sharp minor, and it's at 90 BPM. This is what it sounds like by itself. So that's it. And then I had another loop that is an A minor at 150. So those are the 2 primary loops that we're going to talk about. And then there's also some percussive loops that we'll also go over. So let's go ahead and let's look at loop number 1, which is this Boy Wonder loop. The first thing that I like to personally do, I'll kind of walk you through and then I'll show you the final, is this loop is at, 90? First of all, I want to make this loop fit my tempo. So I'm actually going to bring this all the way down so it fits 4 bars. And then we'll have something like this. And it's starting a little bit late, so I'm just going to drag it back like that so we can start it on the beat. So this is what we have after we actually bring it to our tempo. So now we've got it to our actual tempo. The next thing I like to do is I like to put it in a little bit different key. So for this song, I transposed it up 3, and Cubase, you can just go right here. I like putting it in a different key because that makes it instantly a little bit different. So now the next thing I did, and I'm going to go over to the one that I actually used, is I went through and I put this to a quarter note and I just chopped it all up, and then I just rearranged the melody to be something completely new and completely different. So I had it all chopped up like that, and then this is what I ended up coming up with. So you can hear that that melody is completely different then. So that melody swapping up really helps me out. And then I like to put halftime on loops a lot, just to give them a little bit more movement in the low end. So I put this on 1 bar halftime, 50% mix. And then just filtered out some of the lows and boosted some of the highs a little bit. So I'll show you the original now, right next to the one that we actually have. So this is the original. So that sounds drastically different than this. And another thing that I did was when I copied it for the next 4 bars, I actually took the first note and I took that down to transpose 1. So it's actually falling 4 below this, because this is up 3. This is down 1 from the original. So we're going from like an A minor to an F minor. So we've got A minor and then F minor. And that just gave me a little bit of extra variation. So then after that, I was like, okay, we've got a pretty cool lead. So I wanted to add in some drums. So I added a kick and a snare just from our hip hop pack. And then I added an 808. It's just the best 808. You've probably got it if you have any of our free content. So we've got all that. So with the loop, we have this now. So the next thing I wanted to do was I wanted to add some extra kind of melody on top of it. That's when I found this loop, the 150 A minor loop. And a lot of the time, I'll just keep in mind if something is minor or major, and then I'll find a loop that is in minor or major, and then I can scale it up or down however many semitones. So like, for example, if this would have been in C minor, I would have just brought it down 3 semitones to be A minor. However, since it was in the same key, I did not have to do that. So this is what it sounded like originally at 150. So of course I had to tempo align that to be 120, and I'll go ahead and take off all the processing. And it actually sounds really sick as is, but this is all about making it kind of unique, right? So here it is just to the tempo. But let's talk about what we actually did to make it special. So the first thing I did was throw on little altar boy, took it up 12 semitones and put that mix at half, so we're getting a higher octave in there. And then another thing that I like to do with a lot of loops that I'm working with, either percussive or melodic, is throw on either multipass or snap heap and just kind of scroll through the presets, because it'll make it sound like a completely different sound. And I found one on here called Glassy Attitude, and it sounded like this. So we're getting a little bit of wobble, we're getting a little bit of reverb, and we're getting a little bit of saturation. Well, quite a bit of saturation. Next thing I did was throw on micro shift so we can actually spread it out just a little bit and give it some phasey sound. Then I just filtered it with Pro Q because we had a lot of high end in there that I did not want. Next thing I did was threw on H delay at 1/8 dotted to the tempo and blended that in so it's pretty wet now. A lot of the time if I find like a cool vocal throw or like some kind of cool little melodic element like this, I'll put a lot of reverb and delay so it acts more as like a pad in the background, and then I can kind of build off of that. So the next thing that we added was a lot of reverb, and that's pretty high in the mix. Then just filtered it out some more, and then added little altar boy down an octave mixed. So you would think that that's kind of canceling out the first thing that we're doing, but it's not, because the first has the main octave and a higher octave, and now this one is going to bring that main octave from the original down 12, so we're going to get down an octave, blended in barely, the middle octave pretty apparent, and the high octave blended in barely. So it sounds really cool with all of that. And that to me kind of gave it that separation of the original loop that I wanted. Then I just took out some low mids and scooped out a little bit of lows as well. And so now with the original, we have this. So that loop is still decently recognizable, but you'll see as we start doing the next step, it kind of helps that fall way towards the background. So that's just an example of how I'd process a melodic loop. I'll kind of show you how I would process something like a percussive loop. So we have the 420 hi-hat loop 144 clap 3 from Splice. It's a very fun name. And again, like I was saying before, I like throwing on snap heap, and I found this one called the Chirp Perkin, which sounds like this. Here's what it sounds like originally with no processing. Pretty standard trappy loop, nothing special, nothing bad. It's like very not offensive. It was at 144 beats a minute, so I definitely time aligned that to 120. And then I threw on that preset that we just talked about from Snap Heap, and that's gonna give it some extra width. It's gonna kind of modulate it a little bit, and it's gonna give it a little bit of reverb. So doing stuff like that, where it's going to add little pitch variations and it's going to add little delay and reverb throws, helps that sit in the mix a lot better than just a generic straight 8 or 16 bar loop. So here it is with the actual processing. And here it is with no processing. It's just kind of boring. So that's another thing that I like to do to percussive loops. Of course, if I didn't like any of these little rolls or anything like that, I could cut those out and kind of customize the pattern however I wanted. If I wanted to add another one, I could just go in with like a 16th note cut and I could just add them wherever I wanted. But the actual rhythm was pretty non-offensive and kind of fit the backbeat of the song, so I didn't do too much to that at all. The next thing I want to talk about is sometimes you don't have to do anything to a loop, you just use them as ear candy. So this is actually from our Sounds of Life pack. It's loop 17 in the 120 folder, just vibing. So I didn't really do anything to this. I did bring it down 5 semitones so it sat a little bit better in the mix. But sometimes that's really all you need. We could have processed this, but there's so much other stuff that's very highly processed. I wanted this to actually just sit in there nice. So again, that loop originally sounds like this. It's not doing anything crazy. But just by changing that pitch, it does help it sound a little bit different, and it helps it sit a little bit better in the mix because it was too high and just wasn't really fitting the vibe. So using them straight up, that's not an actual tip that we're going to go over, but it is just kind of a tip to if you want to use something as ear candy, you don't have to process it crazy, especially percussive stuff. So just to recap, tip 1 is go crazy with rearrangement, change timing, change tempo, change key, and then swap around the melody as much as you can. Step 2 is going to be heavily processed stuff and just make it sound like a completely different sound altogether. And then step number 3 is actually going to be to layer your own sounds on top of that. So this is not really working with a loop, it's just making the loop work for you. So right now, just standard in the beat, we have this. And it sounds good, it just sounds a little bare and a little kind of generic right now. So then, once you have that, you have the chords. If you can, get the chords down, or if you can figure out pitch by ear, you can easily play some stuff. And if you can't, you can probably look at the key that it started in and then kind of go from there. So, this started in F sharp minor, and then we brought it down 3. So we're just going to work within the key. So right now, just by listening to it, I can tell you. A minor and F minor are going to be my main chords that I want to focus on. So I played those on the synth. So we added that one synth, and then I added another synth on top of it, which is just kind of like these bubbly little And then on top of that, we added this. Just another little stab to kind of give it some aggression. And then probably my favorite thing to do is actually layer up the lead melody. So the next thing I did was I just took that lead melody, which is, and I played it on a synth, and you could do this as many times as you want with as many layers as you want, but I found one that I liked in Omnisphere and then just threw on a rotary to give me a cool little wavy bell effect that actually sits really nice with the original loop. So here's mine by itself. Here's it layered over that original loop. So now let me show you the beat without that on top and then with that on top. So here's without it. And then here's it with me throwing in my extra kind of auxiliary synth. And comparing that to those original two loops that I'll drag right back in, I mean, it could not sound any more different. We had both of these loops at completely different tempos and one at a completely different key. Here's them with nothing altogether. Nothing's happening. So again, just take this, fit it to whatever tempo you want to work at, put it in whatever key you want to be at, rearrange the melody, and then you take this one that just happens to fall on that key anyway. And then you get to really just kind of customize them with sound design and adding stuff on top of them. So hopefully this kind of helped you figure out how to make loops work for you and kind of how to add your extra flavor and your extra spice on top of them. And that does it. As you can see, there is so much you can do with loops. You can really rearrange them, repitch them, turn them into a different tempo, do a ton of sound design, put your own synths over top of them. The options are endless, so next time you find a loop that you think might be a good inspiration or a good starting point, definitely play around and see if there are any ways that you can make it your own. If you want to just drag and drop a loop in, there is definitely no problem with that. You are legally allowed to do so. Morally, it gets sticky with artists if you have an artist that hires you and then you put that as a lead element in their song, and then a couple months later they hear it again, they might get kind of pissed off and they might come asking you what the problem is. So definitely be aware of that, but if you start doing some of these things, if they ever notice, you can say, hey, that was a starting point, much like any other preset or loop or anything like that, and we really made it custom to your song. So definitely try to make it fit your aesthetic, your sound, and your actual vision for the song. But other than that, if you have any other ways that you like to make loops feel like your own kind of thing, let us know in the comments below. I'm always looking for tips myself. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to head over to makepopmusic.com and check out the stuff we offer there, we would really appreciate it. But that's going to do it for this video, and we will see you guys next week with a really, really important announcement, so stay tuned. But as for now, much love, make pop music. Peace out.
I don't wanna wait if we're